This is version 1.1, and in today's video I'm going to basically run through 5 things that I think are really important, and in this video I'm going to take a look at the 5 major things that were implemented in this update. If you want to go ahead and look at all the other stuff in the actual patch notes, I'll leave a link to them down below in the description, but for the most part they are just crash and bug fixes, which I don't think would make for too much of an exciting video, me just running through them. So the first thing that they added in this update was a brand new crime mechanic, allowing you to take over the local gangs of cities. This pretty much functions as a workshop after you've actually taken control of it, and from time to time will go ahead and offer you missions to come back and defend your territory from invading gang leaders. To obtain your first alleyway, you are going to need a companion with 30 roguery, and you're going to have to go to a occupied piece of territory and clear out the bandits that inhabit that land. Then you'll have the choice to either leave it clean and get some relationship with the city itself, or go ahead and implement your very own crime boss into the area. From that point on, you'll be earning anywhere from 100 to 200 to 300 gold a day, depending on the prosperity of the settlement. Of course, in the later periods of the game, you are more likely to go ahead and get more cash from that. And overall, it is a pretty nice addition to the game. You do have some back and forth, which is cool to see, that you actually do have to go back and try and defend it, otherwise you risk it being taken over. I would love to see more stuff like that implemented, more missions spawning from this. It's kind of a cool but somewhat underwhelming feature that would really benefit from having more depth implemented into it, but I'm actually kind of excited to see what modders will do with this feature now that it's in the game. I'm sure stuff like Forbury, which is the ultimate crime overhaul mod, will have an absolute blast implementing this into their actual mod. Next, we have the new sally out missions, which again are a really cool idea, but I think something that will be underutilized in the game due to the current way that the mechanics are working. So to access this brand new sally out mission, you are going to have to be defending a castle. You're going to have to wait for the AI to actually build siege equipment, and then you'll have the option to take some of the garrison and make your way outside the city walls and try and attempt to destroy the siege equipment. This can be a really fun thing to do because the whole point of sieges is to try and hold out until reinforcements do arrive, and destroying enemy siege equipment is an absolute must at slowing them down. Once you're actually in the battle itself, you are going to be able to be given a large portion of the garrison to make a quick and swift strike outside of the walls. The objective is to go ahead and just destroy the siege equipment with your weapons, and once you've done that, you then make your way back inside of the settlement. However, these pieces of siege equipment will not be undefended. The AI will gradually get more and more reinforcements as time goes on, so you're going to have to be quick before they do obviously outnumber you and start to overwhelm the attacking forces. Overall, I think this is a really cool addition to the game. It's a kind of just spices things up and gives you a little bit more control in that defensive siege. The main problem I see is that it's near impossible to get these regularly on the go. I very rarely find myself actually inside a settlement defending it unless I've kind of already orchestrated that happening. The main barrier to entry right there is just simply getting your army inside the castle without losing half of it to the current sacrifice you actually have to make. I think it would be much better if Tailworlds actually implemented another mission allowing you to try and fight through the siege camp into the castle in the dead of night. This will then actually give some weight to that rather than just clicking a button and losing 50 of your best soldiers just making your way inside of the castle. That, or the ability to actually leave your soldiers somewhere in the mid-game before you are given a castle, I think then would really encourage players to fight way more defensive sieges, which with all the fixes are actually incredibly fun. So I think lowering that barrier to entry would be great for this mechanic to really shine. And hopefully this is just a little bit of a taste of what's to come in the future. More of these unique scenario missions are awesome at just spicing up the gameplay and are definitely a welcome addition. The next thing in this update is a complete work to the raiding system in the game, which I think is so much needed. Beforehand, raiding was just never really a viable option when it came to making money whatsoever. Unfortunately, you would just do it to try and slow up the AI at recruiting, and for the most part, the AI just spawns with the best soldiers in the game anyway, so it never really felt like raiding a village was ever worth it. However, in this update, they have completely changed the rewards, so now the rewards come in 3 categories. We get denars, we get everyday goods like tools and pottery, and then we also get the value value from the main production of the village itself. The amount you get from this all depends on the actual hearth of the village, which is kind of how prosperous it is. So the richer settlements that maybe haven't been raided in the heartland of a country will be giving you much greater rewards. On top of that, forcing a village to give you supplies and or recruits is also again now based on that hearth value. So again, a more prosperous settlement, it will give you more resources to leave them alone. And finally, if the raid is successful and you see it the entire way through, you won't leave in a disorganized state. So that means you won't be as easily chased down by reinforcing armies. I think this is an absolutely amazing change to the game because it will make the mid game that bit more enjoyable when you are playing as a mercenary. Now you can just go off and raid whilst the main armies are duking it out and sell them goods that you do go ahead and obtain to make that wage. And I think that's just a nice addition. It's something small, but I think it will go a really long way in your campaign. The next thing we have is the party UI change. So now the party UI is much more manageable, which is a great addition. They've basically taken parts from the party enhance mod, which is definitely one of a mod that I never leave home without, and implemented it into the game. There are currently several things you can filter by. I did find that it would have been nicer when I was using it if I actually had the ability to actually kind of select a group of them. So sometimes I would like my soldiers to be sorted by tier, but also by the type of unit that they are. You can do this if you go ahead and select both of them in order. However, it's a bit of just a clunky way to go ahead and obtain that. And I think that it would be great if you could just toggle on to like two of them and have them in a set order to kind of dictate where they go, much like the party enhanced screen. I do, however, think this is an amazing addition for those of you playing on console because, again, you don't have access to mods that do this. So Tailworld's implementing this has been great, and I'm sure those of you who can actually play on console with the patch having its issues will really benefit from this change. The final thing I want to talk about again in this update video is the new perks. So they have gone through and changed roughly around about 20 of the perks in the game. They've also gone through and finally changed the actual numbers to make sense. They are no longer, this goes ahead and improves your power swing by 2. Which made no sense. Like, what was 2? 2 what? Now they've changed it all to 1%, and all the skills read so much better, which is an awesome addition to the game. They've also gone ahead and changed all the stats with the banners as well. So now they just say that instead of this improves your damage taken by 0.2, it now says 20% or whatever it meant in the first place. All of these are just a great improvement. They've also added more additional skills to the early game that again makes sense. I believe Charm now has one that gives you +3 renowns right away when you hit 25 charm. More stuff like this is much needed. I think a lot of the skills, maybe they have really good benefits for the early game, but they're like 150 skill in, which again just doesn't make sense. You want to have these important skills that help you in the early game, surprisingly in the early game, and it does seem that they are starting to realize that and are kind of throwing back some. I still hope there'll be more added as well, especially now that the game has been out for what, 2-3 years, and they obviously have a lot of player data, so they know what people are doing in the early game. So kind of, you know, enforcing that and improving that and kind of giving people more bonuses like that, I think would be a really good step forward. I know I did say finally, however, this is the last thing I do want to mention, is they have now added a way for you to kind of pass the torch to the next generation. The Retreat is a brand new hideout in the Imperial Mountains with a new NPC called the Hermit. You can go to this Hermit and basically retire your character to play as one of your future heirs. By doing so, you'll give up your current character and obviously immediately start playing as the heir that you have selected. You will also see a stat screen kind of detailing all the things that you had done in that campaign. And I think overall this feature is kind of a nice little small addition to the game. It does allow you to, as I said, pass the torch down and play as someone completely different. It'd be kind of cool for a YouTube series, is, you know, a bunch of YouTubers kind of play out a character's life and then pass down the torch to the heir, which is then played by someone else. And again, I'm kind of really interested to see what modders will do with this. Like having the ability to play as a completely separate clan, I think would be a nice addition, like starting a new character in the world that said character had created, and all the deaths and stuff were all still present. I think that'd be really interesting. Maybe you build up a massive empire and then you start a new clan with this retreat to then play as someone completely different and you try and bring that down and then forge a new empire. Is all interesting stuff. So that is going to be it for the 1.1 update. There were a bunch of other changes. Again, I'll leave a link to the patch notes down below, but hopefully I covered the important ones. Let me know what you guys thought of this update. Is this something that's going to get you back to playing a brand new campaign? Do remember, if you did have a previous campaign going and you were on Steam, you can just go to properties, go to your betas and revert back to an older save. That should make it absolutely fine. I've had no issues when I've done that. But if you are on console, you've kind of drawn a short end of the stick because you're not going to be able to do that and your campaign is just lost, which I imagine is going to frustrate a lot of people. Make sure you drop a like and a comment down below if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.